There is a very specific type of betrayal that completely changes who you are as a person. It is not the sudden, explosive kind of betrayal. It is the slow, calculated kind. The kind where the people you love look you directly in the eyes, smile at you, and patiently wait for you to empty your bank account before they finally plunge the knife into your back. My name is Sarah, and for 5 years, I was married to a man named Mark. Mark was the textbook definition of a mama's boy, but I was so blindly in love that I ignored all the warning signs. I had a very successful career as a commercial interior designer. I worked incredibly hard, saved every penny I earned, and dreamed of one day buying a beautiful forever home for us to raise a family in. But Mark's mother, Brenda, had a different plan. Brenda lived in a massive, decaying, 4-bedroom house on the other side of town. It was the house Mark grew up in, but it was falling apart. The roof leaked, the electrical wiring was a massive fire hazard, and the backyard was just a swamp of dead grass. One Sunday night at dinner, Mark and Brenda cornered me with a proposition. Brenda put her hand over mine, looked at me with tears in her eyes, and said she couldn't afford to maintain the house anymore. Mark then looked at me and delivered the pitch. He said, "Sarah, why don't we renovate my mom's house? If you use your savings to fix it up, she will let us live there rent-free. It can be our forever home. We will raise our kids here, and when my mom passes, we will inherit the house." I was hesitant, but they spent weeks wearing me down, guilt-tripping me, and making grand promises about our future. Finally, I agreed. I took exactly $100,000 out of my hard-earned life savings to completely gut and remodel Brenda's decaying house. I didn't just paint the walls. I hired professional contractors to tear down the load-bearing walls for an open-concept kitchen. We completely rewired the electrical grid. We poured brand new concrete and installed a massive, luxurious swimming pool in the backyard. The house was transforming into an absolute mansion. But because Brenda was terribly in debt and had a horrible credit score, the city would not let her pull the massive construction permits required for the structural changes in the swimming pool. So, I did it. I went down to the city planning office, filled out the heavy paperwork, and pulled every single structural, plumbing, and electrical permit strictly under my own name. I signed as the primary financier and the liable project manager. It was a standard procedure. I didn't think anything of it. I should have known something was wrong during the final week of construction. Mark started acting incredibly distant. Brenda stopped coming out of her room to talk to me. On a Friday afternoon, the contractors finally finished. The house looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. The pool was filled with crystal clear water, the new hardwood floors were shining, and the kitchen was absolutely flawless. I was exhausted, but I was so proud. I thought I had just secured my family's future. When I walked through the front door that evening, wiping the construction dust off my jeans, I froze. Sitting in the middle of my brand new $100,000 living room were 3 large black trash bags. Mark and Brenda were sitting on the expensive new sofa I had bought. They weren't smiling. "What is going on?" I asked, looking at the trash bags. Mark wouldn't even look me in the eye. He just stared at the brand new television on the wall. "I am filing for divorce, Sarah. I want you out of this house by tonight." My heart completely stopped. I couldn't breathe. "What are you talking about?" "I just spent my entire life savings building this house for us." Brenda stood up, crossing her arms with the most evil, arrogant smirk I have ever seen on a human face. "You didn't build anything for us, sweetheart. You renovated my house. The deed is strictly in my name. You have absolutely no legal claim to this property. Thank you for the free upgrades, but my son doesn't love you anymore. Take your trash bags and get out before I call the police for trespassing." I stood there in complete shock. They had planned this. For 6 entire months, they had smiled at me, eaten the food I cooked, and watched me drain my bank account to zero, knowing exactly what they were going to do the minute the last nail was hammered. They used me as a free contractor. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, terrifying calmness washed over my entire body. I looked at Mark, picked up my trash bags, and I walked out the front door without saying a single word. They thought they had won. They thought they had successfully robbed me blind and secured a luxury mansion for themselves. But they forgot one very tiny, incredibly important legal detail. The final city inspection hadn't happened yet. First thing Monday morning, I didn't go to a divorce lawyer. I drove straight to the city planning and zoning department. I walked up to the front desk, handed the clerk my ID, and requested to legally withdraw and cancel every single active construction permit associated with Brenda's address. The clerk looked at me, confused. Ma'am, if you cancel these permits before the final inspection, the city will consider all the structural and electrical work at that address to be entirely unpermitted and illegal. I smiled warmly at her. I am aware. I am no longer financing or overseeing the project, and I refuse to be legally liable for the property. The clerk nodded, stamped the papers, and officially revoked the permits. Before I left the building, I stopped by the code enforcement office. I submitted an anonymous urgent tip regarding massive, unpermitted structural demolition, illegal electrical wiring, and an unauthorized swimming pool at Brenda's exact address. I didn't have to wait long for the fireworks. 2 days later, Mark and Brenda were sitting by their brand new, illegally installed swimming pool when 3 city code enforcement vehicles aggressively pulled into their driveway. The inspectors walked through the house, taking photos of the missing load-bearing walls, the new electrical grid, and the massive pool. Because my permits had been legally canceled, Brenda had absolutely no paperwork to justify the massive construction. The city didn't just give them a warning. Because the structural and electrical changes were deemed an immediate, unverified hazard to human life, the city inspector pulled out a massive roll of red tape. They officially red-tagged the house. A red tag means the property is legally condemned and completely unfit for human habitation. The inspectors ordered Mark and Brenda to vacate the premises immediately. When Brenda started screaming and throwing a tantrum, threatening to sue the city, they called the police, who physically escorted her and Mark off the property and padlocked the front door. But the absolute best part? The karma didn't stop at the eviction. Because the renovations were done illegally without active permits, the city issued Brenda a massive $20,000 fine. And to ever get the red tag removed so she could sleep in her own home again, the city gave her a brutal ultimatum. She couldn't just retroactively apply for new permits. The city legally forced Brenda to hire a licensed demolition crew at her own massive expense to completely tear out the brand new electrical wiring, rebuild the original load-bearing walls, and fill that beautiful, expensive swimming pool completely with dirt. They stole my $100,000 to build their dream home, and because of their own arrogant greed, they were legally forced to pay $50,000 of their own money just to completely destroy it. I heard through a mutual friend that Mark and Brenda are currently living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, drowning in legal debt. Trying to scrape together enough money to uncondemn a house they can't even legally step foot inside. Meanwhile, I took my career to a new city, doubled my income, and I sleep incredibly well at night. What about you guys? Have you ever had someone try to use you only for their own arrogance to completely destroy their lives? Drop a comment below, and if you love stories where the bad guys get exactly what they deserve, make sure to hit that subscribe button.